Hi, everyone. It's Patrick. Welcome for this week. I want to thank you for joining us this week. A couple of things before we get started. If you recalled last week, we announced that as the states and various countries move from pause to reopening, that we will also take time to make the pivot from pause break 30 to a more permanent brand. So I want to thank you for joining us as we look to, this is our beginning, the unveiling of our new permanent brand as we start off today. So thank you for joining us once again. Do me a favor, if you can share with some of your friends, family, like the broadcast. We're streaming live both on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So make sure that you contact someone. For those that are not viewing it live and you're viewing it in replay, we want to thank you for continuing to be part of this channel and continue to be part of our world, our community. So today we are going to talk about could be a challenging topic, but let me welcome you to our new show, our new brand, and it's called The 30. So our primary focus on The 30 is business, leadership, and entrepreneurship. That will be our primary focus as we go forward. The time will remain the same. We will be here each week from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, streaming live on Thursday. The conversations will continue to be exciting and informational. That's my commitment to you. And we will have guests that are both inspirational, both also exciting, and provide the necessary tools and information that you will need in order to take yourself or your company from where you are to the next level. That's our goal, is to help you and to serve you as best we can. So in preparing for the rollout of The 30, I had this elaborate plan as to what we're going to do, how we're going to roll it out, what we're going to say. I had everything all set. I had the topic all set, everything. And then yesterday, I think it was yesterday, good friend of mine, Mark Rennie, he posted something on Facebook, and I responded back. I replied, and we'll talk about what he posted shortly as I bring Mark in. But I commented on the post, and it stayed in my spirit for a long time. I couldn't shake it. So late last night, I reached out to Mark, and I said, hey, how about you being a guest on The 30, be our first guest? Because it stayed in my spirit. And as much as I want to shift away and move away from it, it just stayed. So I decided to move from our original plan and focus on what's going on in our country. So tonight, our topic is going to be called Moving Forward, a conversation about racism and racial inequalities. So tonight I've asked my great friend, and I'm going to bring him in right now, Mark Rennie. And hey, everybody. Mark is a dad. Well, I'll let him introduce himself, but we obviously look a little different. I hope that you can see that. But Mark and I go back. We live in the same community. And Mark is a man that I really admire and respect. I know his family well, having coached two of his sons, and we've had some deep conversations. He's also a man of faith, like myself. And I wanted to bring Mark in because we obviously have two different perspectives. And what I want to do, the goal here is to have a discussion about where we are, where we're going, and what can we do. Just the two of us chatting and see what we can do on our part to help influence and move the conversation forward. So we're going to also plan to engage you. So if you have any comments or questions, just jot them in the comment line and we'll address them. So Mark, welcome to the 30. This is the first one, groundbreaking. So I want to thank you for that, awesome. For you taking your time away from your family to address a topic that I think that we need to at least explore and have a conversation about. So to start out, let's get a summary of who Mark is and what Mark does.
Who Mark is? As you mentioned, probably the number one thing I want to say is that I am a born-again Christian, brought up in a family of faith, and that's been something that's defined my life forever. I'm married to my college sweetheart, Michelle. She's awesome. We have 3 sons, and we have 1 adopted son, not legally, but he's just a son of my heart. I'm a teacher. I'm a special education teacher at one of the local suburban school districts in the area. I've coached basketball primarily for most of my life at various different levels. And as you mentioned, you have been 2 of my son's coaches in soccer, and Michelle and I have been extremely blessed by having you as a coach. I'm going to give a shout out to Patrick for everybody because, yes, he's a phenomenal man and stuff. He's an awesome coach. And quite honestly, the thing that we have always been most impressed by Patrick is, yes, he loves soccer. Yes, he wants to teach soccer, but he's so much more about teaching character in young men. And that means more to me than anything else. So shout out to Patrick for being a stellar guy that he is. So, yep, that's a little bit about me.
Okay. All right. And you are teacher and coach. And how many boys do you have? You said 2, 3 boys?
Well,
or 4 boys?
I really have 4 because I have a son of my heart that he's not biological, but man, he's my son. You know?
Awesome.
Matter of fact, tonight is his birthday, and I'm missing on a little bit of his birthday celebration to be here because this is extremely important for me to be here. So,
well, thank you, Mark, and please send his. Let him know that we're thinking about him. Maybe I have to give him like a little note or gift or something for his birthday for having you here. So Mark, let's talk about your Facebook posts. If you can remember it, what was the gist of the post?
So prior to the post, actually, I was watching a video that a friend of mine had posted from Steve Furtick and Pastor John Gray. And it was just a discussion. It was their Sunday morning service, but it was more of a discussion on racism. And I mean, I just was moved by it. I was challenged by it. The line that stuck out to me, and I posted on Facebook, was that he basically said that people view him and he's weaponized before people even get to know his character and the man that he is, that people immediately look at him and already are thinking bad thoughts about him. Mm-hmm. And not even knowing him, and to me that was really disturbing. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to have that happen to them. And this pastor saying that really disturbed me. But obviously, anybody. I mean, you actually said a little bit to me about that as well, and that disturbed me to know that Patrick, the guy I know, the guy that I respect and love, would feel that way as well. That people would look at you negatively immediately without knowing you. So that was part of it. And really, like, he was encouraging white people to say something. Like, he was basically saying, you're going to say, no matter what you say, you're probably going to offend somebody in some way about something, some terminology, whatever. But like, you need to get out there and say something. Don't just sit quietly. And so that was what stirred me is, I need to say something. I'm, as I said in the Facebook post, I think I'm fairly, if not completely, clueless on racism and how it affects people of color. It's just not something that I've really seen or experienced. So I know I'm clueless about it, but I know that it exists. I know it's wrong. As I'm learning more and more about people sharing their experiences, it helps me to understand it. It gets me more and more disturbed. But it stirs my heart to know how real it is. And that's extremely beneficial.
Yeah. And I want to thank you for that being so open, Mark, and having a heart of compassion, as I know that you've always had. Yeah, it's real. And the pastor that Mark is talking about is Pastor Gray. And my comment to Mark, on my response back to Mark's post was, yeah, I know exactly where he's coming from, being a black man in this country, and also being a black man living in a small community. So we've all experienced that as black men, one time or the other. As probably as a black person, we've experienced that. So I wanted to have a conversation about that because, like it or not, before anyone sees what's inside of you, they first see your color, right? So they see, and they make a decision right there or then whether or not they want to engage with you. So let's start there. I can give you some experiences that I've had. I've traveled all over this country, and I've been blessed to just travel for my job and business. And I'll tell you, sometimes I'm in suits, sometimes I'm dressed down, sometimes I'm in a baseball cap and sweats, and that's about it. But if I'm in a suit and I'm going to work, I'm going to do some work or some business, I've had experiences where I walk into an elevator. I'm in the elevator, someone comes in, maybe a white lady, and I've had this experience. She looks at me, and the first thing that she does is clutches her bag. Right?
Yeah.
So think about that. I'm here, I'm minding my own business, I'm dressed up, and that's the first thing. So what does that tell you?
You have a friendly face. You have this, I don't know, like everything about you is the demeanor of, I'm a peaceful, gentle, loving guy.
Right. So just think about that. That's just an example of it. And we'll just talk about more as we move forward. So Mark, give us a little discussion. Let's talk about your background and where you grew up. First and foremost, did your parents talk to you about anything about racism or anything racial?
Yeah, so my background is my parents were divorced, and we were very, very poor growing up. My mom was a single mom who worked 3 jobs, and we would get free food dropped off at our doorsteps regularly. And then my mom, she married this wonderful guy that I'm getting emotional just thinking about, but my stepdad, Larry Lonzak. And he was somebody who just taught me about loving people, quite honestly. He loved people, respected people. It didn't matter who they were. And I get teary-eyed because I lost my stepdad several years back, and it's obviously a tough thing for me still to this day.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
One of the things I would share about my stepdad besides that is he worked for the city mission of Schenectady, and he worked in the men's ministry. And man, he just loved on the homeless men. Didn't matter who they were, what color they were, anything. He just loved on them. I mean, he would invite them over to our house on Thanksgiving to share a meal with us. So just some strange homeless man would come into our house, and really cool. Like if you actually, when he passed away, they named the men's center the Larry Lonzak Men's Center, and then they put in quotes the Ark. And it was all about this arc about saving and bringing in homeless men into the shelter to take care of. And so that's where I'd say is probably what stirred in my heart too, as far as being sensitive to anyone. Right. It's my Christian faith. It's my dad. It's my 2 most influential men in my life, Jesus and Larry Lonzak. And they both taught me to love and respect all people. Doesn't matter who they are, where they're from, what they look like. You love and respect people, and it's carried over into my my life as a teacher, as a special education teacher. I have oftentimes some of the students that I've worked with over the years have been those that have one, either don't fit in with some of the school setting, or 2, they have caused themselves a little bit of a trouble, and they're in need of a little bit extra teacher supervision. So all of my life, even going back to working at the Villa of Hope years ago. And all of my life has been about taking care of kids. And it's been at every level from literally this year. I've been working with kindergarten and first graders to middle school to high school. I've taught just about, I think, every grade level except for second grade. And it's just a matter of loving kids and not caring, what they look like or anything like that. So that's at least a little bit about me and how I've come to be who I am, I guess.
Awesome.
Again, because of my two most influential men in my life, Jesus and Larry.
Awesome. Good. Thank you, Mark. So have you spoken with your kids about racism or racial inequalities? Is that a discussion that you've had with your sons?
It is. I will say one thing, first of all, like even talking about growing up as myself being a kid, my dad never really talked too much about that word racism, and he just showed love and respect. And I'm going to be honest and say, as a father, that's probably, I lean more towards that as well, of being showing, not talking as much. I mean, I think in general, people kind of look at me and say, Mark Rennie's a leader, but I'm not always one to be very verbal about things. I'm more of a leader who shows. And so that's definitely, I would quite honestly say that's probably the default that I've gone with my kids is I've shown them. I've shown them as a Christian man. I've taught them what Jesus feels to love and respect everybody. We have talked about it. We've talked about it very much more recently. And quite honestly, my kids will bring it to me before, my son Matt knew about the George Floyd video. He showed it to me. I didn't even know it existed. He showed me and was like, Dad, like, look at this. And so that type of stuff, it's bringing up conversation in our own house. Even after that video came out, like Matt and my wife Michelle went to the store and he was walking in and I don't even remember the whole story, but it was basically at a local store that they saw a group of white people go by, didn't say anything, and then a group of blacks went by and the store personnel like questioned them on something, and it was literally like the same thing, the whites. And Matt's like, Mom, did you just see that? Why did they question the black folks there and not the whites? So it is something that's being brought up more. Even tonight, when the family, even at the birthday dinner, we're talking about this because they all knew I'm talking tonight, and we were talking quite a bit about this particular issue. I think what we do is we will, when something comes up, when we see something, or when Michelle sees something at work, and we come home, we talk about it as a family. But I think an area of weakness for myself, quite honestly, is just taking more initiative and not waiting for something to come up in the social media to talk about, but just be like, hey, let's talk about various issues of racism that are out there.
Sure. And I'm glad in some way that Matt witnessed that.
Oh yeah.
Because it now gives him a level of exposure.
Yep.
Saying that this is real. Because this is something that as black folks, this happens to us all the time. And there's not saying that I'm complaining about it, but I'm just putting out there as a reality of what we go through in terms of always being questioned about what we're doing. And you can have two people of the same age, maybe friends, going through the same experience, but one person having a privilege and the other one does not. And that's the reality that we have here. So I'm glad that he witnessed that. And the thing is now, what does he do with it? Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's the next step. So as a
Patrick, can I share with you a couple more examples of this stuff that
absolutely. This is discussion.
Even talking just around the dinner table tonight, again, they taught me something. They're like, Dad, have you heard about the George Floyd challenge on TikTok? I'm like, no, I don't even follow TikTok. And they're like, yeah, it's a challenge where basically it's white teenagers that are posting pictures of them kneeling on other people's necks.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that. Like,
I had no idea. Wow.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's disgusting. it's sad that there are idiots out there that are doing something like that. So that was one thing. And then I'll tell you another thing. So one of my sons, Mike, he sent me something. Actually, Mike and Matt, they were like, "Hey, Dad, have you seen on social media that some of the rioters in the city of Rochester are they're making threats that they're coming to Brockport tonight, and they're coming to the suburbs to wreaking havoc." And I didn't know if it was true or not, but like I locked up my house, I secured stuff, I had weapons out if need be type stuff. And I mean, Matt was genuinely like, I probably would have not believed the hype of it, but like Matt was genuinely really concerned. And we went to bed that night, and I stayed up really late just in case something happened. And then the next day, I basically said, this was a good experience for us. Like nothing happened. It was probably all a bunch of lies
Social
or whatever.
media. Yep.
Yeah. But what it did is it caused us, a house of white folks, to feel unfortunately, what a lot of Black people feel on a regular basis. And
Yep.
my son going to bed feeling concerned for his safety just gave us a little sliver of what I imagine kids of color deal with on a regular basis
Every day.
So that it was not a pleasant thing, but it was good that we experienced it.
That's good. That's good. So it's good that both Mike and Matt are starting to, at least now they're thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
And that you guys are talking about it. And our hope is that part of this conversation, what we're doing here, will at least spark some more conversation at dinner tables.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, as a teacher in a suburban district, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
How have you ever had to deal with any racial inequalities? If so, how did you deal with it?
Well, I mean, just in general, like our district is becoming an urban suburban school district just recently, not too many years ago. And they're obviously wanting the teachers to be much more culturally responsive. Education is the key term type thing that people are using, and being more sensitive. And they would ask for feedback as far as like, hey, what can we do, this and that. And like, I honestly was like, well, the entire administration are all a bunch of white folks.
Mm-hmm.
There's barely anybody at the high school of color that works there. And the percentage of people of color are not zero. And so like, that's one of the things I said to them is like, we need to be hiring people of color to be in positions of power and administrators and principals and whatever, or even like the district office folks. We just don't have that very often. So that is just one of the ways I've challenged them. And then even with when we've done the cultural responsive education, like again, like we're I'm in a professional development type class meeting, and a bunch of white folks are leading the discussion and training on this. And again, I made a comment of, we're a bunch of white folks trying to help each other to be more like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't
like
make sense.
We need a Patrick Jackman to come in and like be a consultant and teach us.
We're here.
Like,
we're here to help. Right?
Well,
yeah, but that happens so often is that you want to change. There's a willingness to change, but yet at the same time, you don't know how to change because you have the same people around the table.
Yeah.
So how are things going to change if the same people that implemented the policies are the ones now that want to change it when you don't have anyone else of color, Black, brown, coming in to say, hey, here's where you should look at. Here's what you should do. But it happens so often.
I will say the district has, in some of the training, they will have like a little bit of a video that they'll play, and it'll be of the high school students mostly, some middle school students, but that was probably the most powerful part of the entire training, was actually having students of color from the high school, middle school that were there, like sharing their experiences. Again, I kind of shared that with you earlier, that to me, that's like one of the most beneficial, the most stirring my heart and my mind to hear of people's experiences, and it disturbs me. And so having high school students do that, and we do, I can't think of the name of the committee, but there's a committee that's basically of some adults and a bunch of students there, multicultural type group that really does give advice and does give feedback to the district. I don't want to like totally down my district. They are doing what I'd say is an appropriate and acceptable and really good thing to do to get the kids involved in it. But I just think when it comes to, when we have nobody in any of the positions of power that I can think of, we have one social worker, I think, what we do. But I don't know how many other people we have to speak on behalf of that are adults. So that's obviously a problem.
And the thing is, how many other districts are like that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. How many other districts? So we have people of color, black, brown, in the districts, but there's no representation.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes the excuse is, well, we can't find anyone. Well, where are you looking? Where are you looking? There are qualified brown and black people out there. Where are you looking? Who are you contacting? So we can't make the excuse anymore that that they can't find anyone, because they're qualified, good people out there that are overqualified, that can come in and do the job that's needed. But we just have to be open to say, okay, I'm going to be open to something different. If we want to move and change things. If we say that we're going to change things, change is not comfortable. Sometimes change can be painful. But if we say that we're going to change, we have to commit to the change.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So just a couple more things. I know time is going here. We may run over to 30 minutes because this is a great conversation.
Yes, it's quick 30 minutes.
So
I know.
And again, I'm talking to Mark Rennie. Mark is a great friend of mine. As we said, I coach Mark's two sons. I love Mark and his wife and his entire. What's that?
I said back at you.
Oh, back at you. Thanks. Yeah. So they are wonderful people. And I can always bounce things off Mark. We had a situation last year, and Mark says, "Hey, can you bring it up with someone that's above that person?" And I says, "No, just leave it be." And that's another example, right? Because I don't see any coaches that's of color.
Well, it's sad to say, but the JV coach at the high school is, and honestly, like this summer, like Matt is like a diehard basketball player. Right. He is getting together with this gentleman regularly to play basketball, to train. This guy's awesome. But yeah, you're right. I'm stretching it by coming up with one, but I know of one, and he's awesome, and I love him.
But there's one. So there's not saying that this is in terms of, there's no excuse. You can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. You got to be willing to change things, right? And accept that change, that people are coming in are not going to do the things like you're doing it, because we're different people. We come from a different background. We see things differently, different perspectives. So you have to embrace that and say it's for the best. Say Joy here I'm going to bring Joy here, say here, hello from Idaho. Hello, Idaho.
This is my buddy Joe from high school.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, Joy.
Hey, Joe, glad to hear, man.
Jamie, thank you so much for watching. Janice, thank you for watching. I appreciate that. We're going to go over a little bit, but Mark, where do we go from here? So let's talk about it in terms of going forward. What suggestions do you have that will help us? Because we're in trouble. We are definitely in trouble as a country. We are so divided. I've originally I'm from Barbados, as you know, but moved here years and years ago. So this is my country now. But how do we move the needle forward in bringing people close together and understanding each other? What do we do?
Yeah. First, immediately comes to my mind is I'm not a big brain think tank to come up with like, what do we do? I feel, for me personally, I think, and as a Christian man, I think to get churches together, man. My church used to years ago to get together regularly with a church from Buffalo, and they're mostly a minority, as a church of minorities, and I used to love getting together with them. We used to have a retreat together with them. And then I think the pastors kind of moved away and it just kind of lost connection. But like as a church, as Christian men, I would love to see more of that happen where we can get together and we can, more than anything else, hear experiences from people and what they're dealing with. Because I think that's a big part for me. Again, maybe I'm different than other people, but it helps to hear. It helps to hear what Patrick goes through or what he's gone through in his life, and to know that an incident like that on an elevator is ridiculous, and what can we do? But I also think it's again, it's probably me. It's how I try to live my life but more so now than ever, of just trying to really be friendly, to everybody, man. Like and maybe go a little bit more so than ever. Try to be sensitive to, hey, man, like. People, I have to show love and respect and make it clear to somebody that maybe as a Black person I'm seeing, just to be overly friendly with them, to let them know, hey man, I'm not like some of those other idiots that are out there that may think differently of you. To let them know. So that's at least part of it, is getting together as a church. I think it's people being a little bit more friendly and reaching out and showing kindness to people, and then personally and corporately to pray about this situation for sure, is a big thing as well, and pray for men and women's hearts to change.
Yeah, because it's just not a man thing. It's a every person thing, right? My little sis, who's Jewish, Jamie, she has a something called Wow Wednesday about customer service. But her thing is also about humankind, because we're all humans. And I love that we're all human beings. They say Sunday is probably the most segregated time. 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated time in the country, because we all go to our individual churches. I may go to a predominantly Black church. You may go to a predominantly white church, and we never come together. So I love that idea, and just not in terms of Christians, but Jewish and Muslims, in terms of, and those that don't believe, coming together and realizing that we're in this thing together.
Yeah,
it's better to be united than not be united, right? But there are forces that still wants us to be separated. So we have to understand too, because that's part of the enemy's ploy, is to keep us separated.
Yeah.
So, as men of God, what role do we have to play in reconciliation? So you said maybe getting together churches. What else can we do? I'm talking specifically about men now, but we also have to embrace women and children as well. But what can we do as men?
Yeah, I think probably the way I started this part of this whole night conversation was sharing about my Facebook post, and so part of it is just, and what made me make that post again was that I really was stirred that I had to say something.
Sure.
So I think that's part of it, as men, is just to stand up and to say something, and one, when you see something, but also say something more so to my kids and other people's kids that are around me. Say something when obviously I see something face to face with me. I think it's a challenging answer for me to answer, quite honestly, and some of it is so desperately wanting to be able to help, and so desperately wanting to change things, but not necessarily knowing exactly what I should do. And that's probably what, as we were talking around the table tonight with my family, is like, I know everybody at that table, they're awesome people. They love everybody. But feeling a little bit like, man, what can we do? And I think even the video that the two pastors posted was basically saying, like, you have to speak up, you have to say something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And they were best friends. They
Yeah.
They were best friends. So that was pretty neat. So we have to follow up on this, Mark.
Absolutely.
Let this not be the end of this, and then we wrap it up like everything else that we do, right? Something happens, we come together, we talk a good talk, but then we just move on and go into our separate spaces. So my commitment to you and to our viewers is that we're going to continue this conversation. Maybe we'll have a round table with others and expand it, and so that we can maybe do a longer piece, but expand it out so that we can at least start to do our little piece, our part, and others can do their part. And then it starts to move forward, right? Because this is all about moving forward. We can't let this opportunity and this time die, because when it happens, then everything is going to be the same.
One of the things as you're talking, I thought of too, is like, social media is crazy. That's it was mentioned on the video, I think, as well. But also, like, it's hard to always know what to believe. And so, I think sometimes as a Christian, white man, you may find different social media posts that steer you one way or the other. And so you have some people who are in denial, or want to post something stupid about George Floyd, some critical piece about him to kind of justify anything. It's like people are looking for reasons to not act, maybe, is what I want to say. And people just need to, bottom line, be like, racism exists. For me to even say that sounds stupid, but to acknowledge it and to be more sensitive and want to help the situation. I think people a Christian man needs to rise up and be more of that, and say, I need to do more. I need to say more.
Yeah, good, Mark. That's good. So I am committed to extending this conversation at another time. I'm going to look at the calendar, and maybe we'll invite a couple more to just talk about it, and not just talk about it, but take some action. Because as I said, talk is cheap, right? But you have to have the conversation first. Because nothing happens without first having a conversation, but then taking a conversation and then putting it into action. Yeah. So that's my commitment to you and to our viewers. So, Mark, I want to thank you so very much. You know how I feel about you and Michelle and your family. So thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
And we will chat soon. So have a good night, Mark, and I will see you later. Okay.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Mark. So again, we were talking to Mark Rennie about racism and racial inequalities here in the States. This was a good conversation. Initially, I was hesitant about doing it, but what Mark's post did is spark action in me. So I challenge you to do the same. I know that you may be thinking, well, why me? What do I have to say? But if each one of us can do something positive and engage someone else that may not be of the same race that we are, and understand where they're coming from, have a conversation. Maybe after COVID-19, take them out for coffee or tea, and or put them up on Zoom or Google Meet or something. Have a conversation, pick up the phone and call them, and have an honest conversation about how you feel, what you should do, and what can we do as people. Because nothing is going to change until we as people decide to change. So I challenge you, as we end our broadcast, I challenge you to move into action, have a conversation. Don't just sit back and says, I'm comfortable, I'm not going to rock the boat, I'm good. Because we all think that until something happens to someone in our family or to us. So that's my challenge to you. I want to thank you for the time. I want to thank you for viewing our first broadcast of the 30. We're back next week. If you are watching this in replay, hit us up, drop some comments, drop me a line. My email address, this is brought to you by the Jackman Group. Our email address is info@jackmangroupllc.com. Until next week, be safe. May God bless you and your family. Have a good night.